a different scenery today. We're not in the studio, but we're on Zoom, and we're joined by a very special guest, Stephen Jackson. Thank you for coming on.
Hey lads, you all right?
Yeah, we're good, thank you.
Good.
Just to kick off, then, if you just give a little bit of an introductory into yourself and what you do at Yarm.
Yeah, I'm first team manager at Yarm. This is going into my third season as manager, where I saw my final year of playing was at Yarm after playing in the Northern League, well, since I was 16. So I had about 17 years playing in and around Northern League Division 1 and 2. And then, been lucky enough to be Yarm manager for the last 2 seasons, going into my third season now.
Great, and obviously a very successful last season, which we'll get onto. But before we get underway with that, we'll do just a little bit of quick fire questions, just general questions, just to get to know you a little bit more. I'll start. Obviously, as a manager yourself, do you have a favourite manager of all time?
Do you know what? No one's ever asked me that. They've always asked me about players. If I think back, sort of Terry Venables, maybe first manager. That's going back now, lads. You might not even know who he is, but I remember Euro '96 and Venables, and then Ferguson, obviously, and Wenger. That was all sort of my era growing up. So yeah, those sort of managers back in the day.
Fair enough.
Stephen, which is the toughest Northern League ground in your opinion to go to on a Tuesday night?
Oh, lads, you started early. Good question.
Especially when there's like 3 games in a week, I think they're all tough, to be honest. But
yeah, do you know, I'm probably going just because it was the end of the season and things, but Bolton away is tough. As much as we've had a couple of good results, that's a tough place to go. Chester Town, tough place to go. If you were to go on a Tuesday night, and then you've got sort of your annex that we always seem to get on a Tuesday as well. So yeah, always
very up
tough,
north.
Just tight, tough places up north. Yeah.
Nice. What's been the best Yarm performance over the last 2 years for yourself?
Whole performance. We've had a few, obviously. Some poor performances and got some good results on the flip side. But stand out, obviously, we went to Redcar Town, third last game, and they would have won the league that night. And I thought we put a cracking performance in sort of that night. Overall performance, Darlington Town away. After they'd stuffed us Boxing Day, we went to their place and beat them 4-1. They were 2 standout away performances that sort of, etching the mind. And the playoff final was a cracking game against Jarrow. I'm sure we'll come on to it. But it was a great spectacle. As much as it finished 0-0, both teams had a right go. And it was a good game to watch, because some of them aren't. But that one certainly was.
Yeah, you sort of maybe touched on it there, but do you have a one coaching highlight so far in your managerial career?
Yeah, obviously, topping the 3 finals in 6 days is going to be tough from a sort of emotional point of view. But winning the Ernest Armstrong in my first season in charge was big for us, I think, after the disappointment of the playoffs. So that's sort of one that really stands out as well. And we had a great night after, and then we didn't have enough days to party this time through it all. But again, we'll come on to that. So obviously the 3 final wins on penalties, tough to top, but some great, fantastic memories over the last 2 years with a great group of lads.
A bit off the topic of football, Stephen, but what's your favourite holiday destination?
Massive shift in topic, like.
I know, big shift.
And again, old me, sort of Ibiza, and had a lot of great times there. But been some great places. Miami is one that stands out. Incredible place. Yeah, so probably those 2 I would everywhere I've been.
Yeah, not bad.
Which activity allows you to switch off from football?
I've got an 18-month-old there, so he keeps me, grounded, and whether it's been a good result or bad result, you've got to go in and cheery dad. So yeah, that's sort of the main activity away from football. That keeps me busy and grounded, certainly.
There's just one more of these. Who do you support? Obviously, like in Yarm yourself, but in terms of just like as a fan, who do you support?
Yeah, I'm a Middlesbrough lad, so sort of that's my team, and obviously we were at the Riverside this year, which was momentous, and again I'm sure we'll come on to. But yeah, Middlesbrough, disappointment this year. I was at Wembley the other week. Disappointing performance really overall if you watch the final, lads. But yeah, these questions didn't come in the pack.
Yeah, just a quick fire ones for would
No, I
put you
like
on the
it.
spot, get the authentic answers. Do you think
No,
next
that's
season will
good.
be the season for Borough, or you're not so sure?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on recruitment again and strong league it looks like. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully Hellberg. We play some good stuff up to the box, and then it's just sort of in and around the box. We're just lacking some firepower certainly, and that's what unstuck them ultimately in the end.
Yeah, but we'll leave that. We'll move to your managerial career. Obviously, you had a few games as interim boss at Northallerton. How did that role sort of come about for you?
Yeah, so I've got really fond memories of Northallerton. I played there for about 5 years in my first spell, and then went back a bit later in my career. I think I was about 33, 34. So yeah, I was there as a player, and who I'd signed for, unfortunately, they left the club. And it was just interim. It was just 3 games. But I learned a lot in those 3 games that have stood me in good stead. I did it with Dan Jones, who's one of my players now, at Yarm, and we sort of ran that together for those 3 games, and a couple of good results. Got 4 points out of 3 games, and that sort of gave me the taste. To be fair, at Northallerton, and I played another year. And then sort of this opportunity came up. But yeah, it certainly stood me in good stead. A strong group of players we had there who weren't doing too well in the league. So it was sort of galvanising them for, a new manager ultimately who came in and who I knew. And I worked alongside and did a bit of coaching with him to finish the season. But yeah, really, really enjoyed those 3 games. And then, yeah, it certainly gave me the taste for it.
And so, in terms of the taste, what sort of things, like key things, did you learn in them 3 games? Obviously, it's very big shift, isn't it, going from a player to a manager? So, what were the sort of key takeaways you took from that?
How busy it is. Wow. It's obviously a hobby in essence. I haven't signed a contract or anything to do this, but those 3 games made me realise that it doesn't work without, speaking to players, being really organised, tactic. You've got so many different parameters to think about and consider around it. It's not certainly, so much credit to the managers in these leagues, that sort of non-league, this level, especially sort of step 5, step 6, where there isn't sort of a financial incentive for a lot of these managers. But it was how busy it is, and I like busy. To be fair, I won't get away from that. So it's sort of fitting with my style of doing things and managing different personalities and sort of them picking the team, then communicating that, then getting your message across how you want them to play. Yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind, those 3 games. I slightly changed the shape at the time, which was new. So, and then setting up training, and yeah, just how crazy and sort of take over your life ultimately at times. And you've got to sort of, you mentioned earlier, I think Jack asked, you have to have those things that ground you and keep you switched off. Because it can consume you, and I'm sure a lot of managers would agree. But yeah, learn so much from it around that, and that was in such a short space of time. It was 2 weeks. But some players, in that team, John Howard, who have gone into sort of bigger things and better things, managing players like him at the time, and yeah, I learned a lot. I remember going to Wickham away, and we were 3-0 down in 20 minutes, and it was sort of that was probably the biggest learning curve in wow. The players are looking over and thinking, well, what are you going to do here? And I look back and think I should have done a bit more, but that's only with 3 years experience now. You've got to think on your feet a lot, constantly within games as well. So and pre, post. So yeah, it's a lot of proactive thinking, being reactive as little as possible, but you have to do lots of reacting. So yeah, so much learned in those 3 games that I've then developed further within this role ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask Stephen, in terms of obviously moving from playing into management, was managing always something that you were thinking after your career that you were going to get into, or had never really crossed your mind until you were thrown into it?
Well, that question earlier about favourite manager, I think that's it was. It's honestly, and I always sort of observed the managers I played for and sort of looked at what I thought they did really well, maybe things that I felt I wouldn't do that. Wasn't necessarily to set myself up to become a manager at this level. sort of fell into it, as a lot of people seem to at this level with playing. Certainly interested in it. Whether I was going to actively pursue it was a different matter. That was never my intention. It was always sort of a, let's see how it goes. If something comes up, that maybe tickles my fancy, then I'll give it my all. And that's how it's ultimately played out. I think a lot of things in life end up that way, don't you? You don't necessarily push, but the fall sometimes, and everything aligns, and that's sort of what has happened. So yeah, I think, I was always sort of quite vocal in some of the changing rooms I was in towards the end of my career in particular. Some players I played with will probably say I was very quiet at the start of my career, but as you sort of mature and your confidence grows, those things change. So yeah, other players will tell you I was a loudmouth in the changing room, particularly towards the end. So changing rooms are massive again as well, and that's sort of, again, that's what I wanted to stay a part of a group. Changing rooms, the lads, that's it's one of the biggest pulling factors of football. It's like, it's all well and good on the pitch, but it's having the crack before, it's having a pint after. They're the things that sort of keep you going and keep you motivated ultimately, especially when things are getting tough. So yeah, intention to be a manager was never fully there, but it was always sort of in the back of my mind. If something came up, then I certainly wouldn't turn it down if it was right for me.
Yeah, give it a go.
Steve,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jack. But yeah, what was the transition like? You say like you enjoyed the camaraderie, enjoyed the change room. You're saying you were vocal, so did that make it a lot easier you from going from a player then straight to being a manager?
I think it's sort of player to manager is dependent on the group. I hadn't obviously been at Yarm for that long a period, so it's very unique. I think when because there was some people who I spoke to and sought some advice in that's going to be a really difficult transition. It's going to be difficult to be a player, to be one of the lads, to then be expecting so much from the group. But I had an inkling, and I went into Yarm as an experienced player in the season. It was I was already trying to sort of help develop some of the players there and support them, because ultimately I knew what was in this group was really strong. And I had a couple of options in my final year playing, and I knew it was going to be my final year, and it was because of the group that I turned up training and I thought, wow, there's something here. Maybe need a bit more belief. Maybe didn't believe in themselves, and they'd just gone up a level, of course, just being promoted from the Northallerton. So yeah, it's sort of in that season I was sort of, I was leading the group in some elements, off the pitch in particular, as much as I could. And yeah, the opportunity arose, and sort of there was already mutual respect there. I already got on with all the lads, brought a couple of lads in, but didn't change the core we have, because again, as I mentioned, I knew how strong it was. And sort of, yeah, it's just worked. What we set out to do, really clear on expectations, standards, really clear from the offset what we were expecting. I will give everything for them as long as they give everything for us, and that's sort of the agreement. We try to raise some standards around professionalism and things like that, and how we train and what we do and how we set up. And yeah, it's just fallen into place so far. Does that mean it's going to carry on working? We don't know. We'll keep doing our best, and I'll keep giving my best, and yeah, we'll keep going. But yeah, the transition, I think, is unique from player to manager, and this one was a bit more seamless because I hadn't been there that long. Ultimately, I'd been in the club for 9 months, and yeah, as one of the senior players, it was a bit of an easier transition into that. So yeah, it's been really enjoyable.
And when you took the role, obviously the first Northern League season for Yarm, they finished 8th, which is really strong. So what were the targets heading into the season you took over?
Well, we lost the first 5 games. So, and again, I was probably thinking, what have I got into here?
Yeah, I
didn't sign up for a relegation battle, lads. That was the, So yeah, it was never really banded. I think it was sort of consolidating the league, but as I said, I'd looked around in training and thought, some really good players here. And we can push on. I was sort of telling the group that, don't, like, a bit of belief here, lads. You'll go on a run. And we went on a run that year and push the playoffs in the first season. And barring, I think, a bit of lack of squad depth, we'd have got in there in the first year. Were the club ready? Certainly not. But we put ourselves in a position because of the core that is here, that has been here. Glenn Carl and Luke Allen, they founded the club 2017, and there's Glenn's still here now. He's still part of the management team, and they built such a core group of real quality local lads that are all still here now. They're on the track now, that just work for each other because they're mates. And I'd sort of seen that, and that's what I wanted. I wasn't signing for a team in that year for money or anything like that. It was to enjoy football, and they look like they enjoyed themselves, and they do. They enjoy working for each other. They'll dig each other out. Maybe that was lacking a bit. The accountability on each other in that first year, and we fell short ultimately. Not short of expectations, but short of what we could have achieved towards that end of that season. But yeah, it was sort of the perfect. When I was offered the role, the belief was then starting to grow because they'd had a decent season, I will call it, finishing 8th. So yeah, it was. I think the club would probably say overachieved, but I would say finish where they should have with what they had in the group ultimately that year.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to ask if there was a certain standout moment in that season. First season in the Northern League, and we've seen. Obviously, the improvement of all the teams in the Northern League and how difficult it is for you to stay up so comfortably and be pushing for the playoffs in that season. Was this a specific moment that stood out to you with the team?
Yeah, there was a game. I think it was when things shifted and we went on a bit of a mega run. But we played Blue Star, Newcastle Blue Star home, and Big Nelson. I think he's at North Shields now.
Yeah.
He'd scored 2 in the first half, and we just couldn't. I think I was playing against him. Maybe I might be on the he was just running. He was running us ragged, and I think there was 3-0 up at half time. And there is a never say die attitude in this club, as we'll come on to again, and you'll all have seen over the last couple of years. And we came out second half, and I think we got 2 back, 3-2, about 20 to go, got 3-3, and then snuck one. Cam Wild was causing chaos, our captain in the box, and beat them 4-3. And I think the lads were thinking, well, they were obviously top of the league at the point with Blythe Town, maybe second. And I think that was a big shift for the lads in that, wow, look what we've done there. 3-0 down, got back to 4-3, beat one of the top clubs in the league. And then from there, I remember Newcastle Uni stuffing us 5-1. That can happen at any point against them. And then I think it was a sort of really good unbeaten run after Christmas after that. And then that's how we sort of pushed the playoffs. So yeah, that Blue Star game really stands out from that first season. And that and a Redcar Town 4-3 as well. Josh Larkin got all 4 goals in that game. So a couple of 4-3s, which always stand out, the 4-3s.
And then, obviously, you kicked on when you became boss with that massive title race with Horden. I remember that because that's just when we were doing the starting the podcast in March. That's when it was just sort of like getting to the business end of the season. So just to be in that title race, was that sort of something you were proud of after obviously just missing out on playoffs the season before? To be in the title race is a great achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, immensely proud of that season, of how we'd achieved 71 points in that first year when Yarm first came at Northern League, which, as I said, was really strong. And sort of when myself and Richie Walker, my assistant, came in, it was sort of, right, can we beat that points tally as a start? And sort of playoffs is a goal. To push Horden that far, a strong Horden who've shown what they're doing in Division 1 now. I think finished 10th last season, 9th or 10th in Division 1. To push them to the final week of the season, we're really proud of. I think that season they were always just ahead. It was sort of, again, we went on a mega unbeaten run of, I think, 19 games. We'd had an unbeaten run in the first half of the season of 13 games. It was just a couple of spells we had where we lost sort of 2 in 3, or we only lost 6 games all season, so it was never a huge, terrible run of defeats. Too many draws probably towards the end of the year, and that's the same with 95 points. It's most seasons it probably been enough. But fair play Horden, they were the sort of strongest team that season. Very experienced. Thought that was what we were lacking slightly going in that title race. Yarm, sort of, over the years being that sort of Neely team and finished second in the North Riding a couple of times. So yeah, to push them, immensely proud of the group to push them that far. went away to their place and put on a really good performance, but just couldn't score, finished 0-0. And that was sort of we missed a couple of penalties late in that season, which felt like the sort of tail and penalties again. And that's how things flip around because
definitely,
they were our strength this year. But yeah, we missed a couple of penalties, and maybe it was meant to be. Against Bolden at home, I remember Horden away. And yeah, that's sort of why we just didn't get over the line. But fair play at Horden, you know, as I said, it was really strong side that year. Johnny Payne, top manager, and just took them on to, you know, bigger and better things in Division 1 that we're hoping to emulate.
So, Stephen, like when you miss out like that agonisingly that close, how like difficult is it to pick up the group for like a playoff semi-final?
Yeah, when I reflect back on it now, I've got this year's experience. I was quite naive. I was probably overly excited / nervous going into that playoff semi-final. Finishing 21 points above Thornaby was, in hindsight, tough for the group. They were exhausted. It was our 55th game. We played 58 this year, so we played more. We must have got fitter. So I think they were sort of physically and emotionally drained going into that game. And again, I keep saying fair play. Thornaby came with a game plan and they nullified any sort of how we play. They knew how we played and they, you know, exposed our weaknesses that night and very deservedly so. Went on to the playoff final and won it. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I reflect back and think, wow, and especially with if I correlate it to this year's playoff final, you know, I was probably overexcited / nerves in the tummy and maybe exposed that to the group too much, and they maybe felt it and took that onto the pitch. But yeah, we were beat by the better team on the night, won the game. There's no two ways about it. We sort of scored 101 goals. We scored the most in the league, and we didn't lay a glove on them, if we're honest, in that game. So yeah, that was. I found, if I reflect, you said good moments. That was probably one of the toughest moments in sort of us not performing. But ultimately, football, you know, 90 minutes, anything can happen, any game. So and unfortunately that night we didn't do it, and it's much easier now to talk about it. I didn't watch the I still haven't watched the highlights of that, but I didn't watch the highlights of the Thornaby Jarrow final. I couldn't until this year. And I know that's very petty of me, but yeah, it was tough to take and swallow that game after. But yeah, we're here now and we're happy.
But just following on, do you think that made you and your group like improve from that? You maybe took some lessons up for yourself as a manager, and then obviously use it this season. We'll go on to a playoff final in a bit, but it seems like it's helped, and you've learned from that playoff semi-final. Yeah,
I certainly personally reflected on it massively. The group, I think the core group helps in that they pick each other up, and sort of we moved on. We had a cup final to prepare for as well. Straight after it, so it wasn't sort of just feel sorry for ourselves. We had to pick ourselves back up because it was a competition that we'd sort of prioritise, the Ernest Armstrong, and wanted to win. So yeah, there's lots of learning from that, and you know, without that experience, would we have got over the line this year? Potentially not. Nobody's ever to know, but I think that experience stood us in really good stead, and for the group, because the majority who were there, you know, barring 2 or 3 players, were there again this year. So it's sort of, you know, we had that experience, as Jarrow did. But to get through the semi-final this year, that was sort of the first challenging of the lads, right? We didn't do the business in the semi last year. Let's make sure we beat Seaham. Let's at a minimum go one step further, which they did, and really solid performance against Seaham in the semi-final, which I think the lads had learned a lot from the year before in sort of, you know, not creating much, not putting it on them a bit. And yeah, I'd learned massively, you know, to handle emotions around that, when to drill them, when to stand back and maybe be a bit quieter and let them sort of work things out themselves, maybe at points over the course of the whole season, not just in that playoff semi. So yeah, it was a huge learning curve, and you know, for the good now, for the better.
And just sort of we'll touch on the end of the season there. Obviously, winning the League Cup, got a little bit of revenge with that cup victory over Horden, who got promoted. So how good was that feeling to end a really positive season, like overall on a high note?
Yeah, that was big for us. I think that was You know, we went into the game good, and still, like you say, having to pick lads up. Squad was slightly depleted. There'd been a bank holiday Monday and things, going into the game. A few unavailable who you know played the playoff semi. But yeah, it's a really solid performance again, a proper Yarm performance, I'll call it. Nice and strong, nice and solid. Scored our goals at the right times, and deservedly won the trophy. We didn't concede a goal across the 5 cup games that we played in the Ernest Armstrong. So yeah, that was it, and we had a really good night. You know, it was a free bar on, and you know the lads stayed out all night, and that sort of that was huge actually. If I reflect on it now, if I think back to it, that was big in the group, picking back up and right, we can do this. You know, we are strong enough. We know how good we are. We can go again next year. I think that sort of helped us going into pre-season last season, winning that trophy, and yeah, we can get over the line. You know, we can, and that proved that we can. So yeah, a huge turning point, I think, after the disappointment of the playoff semi-final.
And obviously, you've just come off the back of this season, 98 points, which was again an improvement on the points tally. Still a second place finish, which would have meant you know to go through the playoffs again. So, what was the feeling like come the end of the season after again performing on a brilliant unbeaten run? I believe after Boxing Day and getting yourself into that position.
Well, 2 sides to it. Going after Boxing Day, if you'd have said to me, obviously you're going to get 98 points, I probably swore at you because there was, you know, we were in 6th position. We were 6th in the league. We weren't, you know, teams like Northallerton were on our heels. They were in around us. They just beat us 4-1, and we're feeling really confident. And you know, teams like that were, you know, well, they've seen our results. We'd been beat 4-0 off Towler away just 2 weeks previous, so it was a bit of a sticky spell at that point. And you know, the break really helped us from Boxing Day, and we played Thornaby in a pre-season friendly. We trained, we were consistent with training, played our under 21s. We kept taking over. Not sure if every other team did, but we did. We stayed in, and then we went to see them away. So we're coming off the Darlow defeat in the next game, see them away. We're flying, I think 3rd in the league at the point, 2nd, and we beat them 3-0 away from home. And we just didn't look back. From that point, it just became sort of robotic and winning. And we went closer this year than last season. As much as we were 2 points behind, we took it the last game of the season this season. And again, 100 points, you know, huge congratulations to Redcar Town. I couldn't have asked for any more from our lads, particularly from Boxing Day. We drew 2 games out of 26. We won 24. You know, it's ridiculous numbers that don't necessarily happen, and 9 times out of 10 would win you the league. But we came up against a really strong opposition again in Redcar Town, who sort of had recruited really well and pushed on from the season previous where they'd finished 17th. And yeah, they did the business, and we had to go into the lottery of the playoffs again. But it was different going into it this season. I can say that it felt different as a group. We weren't stuttering towards the end of the season. Clearly, we were winning. Whereas the season prior, you know, we drew a Bolden at home, we drew a Horden away. Darlow had beat us towards the end of the season, so we'd sort of stuttered in that first year. Whereas we just came into the playoffs flying, literally. You know, we were confident. We were playing well. Even when we weren't playing well, we were winning games. So yeah, it was a real different feeling. And we recruited. You know, we brought some experience in. You know, Fosgart and Pete Bulmer, and Jack Proctor, who played for Thornaby in the playoff semi against us the year previous. We'd sort of recruited in that sense, and we looked at, right, those lads who've been in around this division, got out of this division. And you know, that really helped the group as well.
And you sort of obviously with the treble, which we'll go into a bit later, you were juggling a lot of competitions, but you've mentioned there about the relentlessness of just finding a way to win games. So do you think all those games thick and fast almost help the group as well, just like maintain focus throughout?
Yeah, it helps me. I prefer it, I'll be honest, the relentlessness of the games. You learn so much from the game. Yes, training's great, you know, it's great here and there, but the games are where you see what your lads are made of, and what they're about, and how much they're on it, and where you need to make changes. So yeah, the games were sort of massively thick and fast. I listened to your podcast actually before our run of finals, and I hadn't massively considered that we had 3 finals. So we had Wrighton in the semi-final of the Ernest Armstrong, and it was Richie, assistant, who said to me, "Could win 3, could be treble, 3 finals." I said, "Get away, Richie." And then we got over the line in that night. Wrighton, that was a bit of a backs to the wall game. They pressured us for 20 minutes. And then I said to the lads, we want games. We'd all rather have games. We had the squad to manage it. We had a bigger squad this season. We carried sort of 22, 23 through the season, and we went into those finals with 20 lads, and that meant that some, unfortunately, had to be left out of some finals, but they came in for other finals, and some tough conversations to have with some lads, but they'd bought into everything, and that's how you get over the line when everyone's buying into it, and nobody complaining, nobody moaning, even missing the Riverside. I had to ring 3 lads and say, look, you're not in the squad for the Riverside. There's other finals you're playing. That was great. They were involved in the night, and they came in the other finals and were fantastic and actually unbelievable in how they performed. And that's what we've got, and that's what gets you over, that gets you through these things. No complaining, no mornings, business, and we're here to win football matches as a group and enjoy ourselves after as much as we can. And yeah, luckily for us, we won football matches at key periods. And a crazy 6 days. Yeah, a crazy 6 days it was.
And then with that, Stephen, does that just make you how proud you are of your group you've assembled, that they're able to listen and then turn out performance constantly after obviously the previous season where you've gone so far, but then be able to churn out again, and then complete a treble and then that fantastic playoff final win?
Yeah, so I can't take credit for assembling the sort of core of the squad. They were already here, and we've maintained that, and that was sort of one of my priorities, was ensuring that core is still here. Jack Dalton's, Cam Wilds, Joe Dalton's, I'll miss them out here. But they're sort of 3 who stand out there of who've been a long time. Tom Atkinson, the striker. And we sort of we've built around them, and we've kept the main group who've been here forever, and only signed lads who fit. We look to recruit on personality as much as ability. If you're looking for money, Yarm isn't the place to come. We have a very competitive budget, but not to the stratospheres of other clubs at this level. So we sort of, it has to be the right character, the right temperament if you're going to come into Yarm, and we appreciate character, but they have to fit into the group, and if it doesn't, it's sort of weeded out early. And that's what works for us, and it's been successful so far, and we haven't sort of changed that in our recruitment this year. We brought sort of Dan McWilliams in and Mikey Roberts, very experienced players at this level, who you can tell after a couple of training sessions, suit our group. So yeah, it was sort of huge in having that core in those moments. Alex Dougal, another one, who was one who missed one of the finals, but a core player, who were key for the group because they hold everyone to account, they keep everyone on the line, and everybody keeps each other in check. And sort of, I do when I need to, but it's not required most of the time because the group run themselves in the changing room. I just sort of try and put them out to what I think will be the best for that game. And they do the business. The managing's the easy side when you're at the games ultimately.
Jack, you got a question lined up?
Sorry, I was going to speak. I'd seen you leaning forward.
Oh yeah, that's the thing with this technology. You don't have the guides in person. Sorry about that. Just
sorry. I was going to ask Stephen about. You said you had to make some difficult calls because the finals were so obviously tightly congested together at the end of the season. The one from the Riverside, like yourself, I'm sure many of the players will be Middlesbrough fans. What was the feeling like winning the trophy on penalties at the Riverside Stadium?
Yeah, it was an incredible night, that one. Very different to the other 2 finals, and obviously the occasion. Trying to sort of soak it up as much as possible. I think you look at the prestige of the competition, you look at the previous winners. Just outstanding achievement, that one, as a club. If you don't mind, I'll run through sort of the competition, which I've done previously. But we beat York Academy in the first round. We went down to 9 men. Beat them on penalties, obviously. We then went
about pens this season.
We then went to Scarborough Athletic away, Bridlington on Tuesday night. They played their full first team. National League North team were 5th in the league. We went with 12 first teamers, 421s. Just give them a real good game. Went 1-0 up in the first half. Deservedly so. They came out, went 2-1 up, and we scored late on. Cam Thompson, who we just signed, and we beat them on penalties. And then Northallerton away in the semi-final. So it was a real journey. We scored 95th minute. Harry Titch, one of our young lads, outstanding player, whips one in. Tom Ackroyd's put one in the top bins before that. And it sort of felt like it was meant to be to get to that final and the occasion. And sort of like I was there about 5:15 on the pitch with Richie. We got our kickabout in. And then the lads soaked it up as well. We got the home changing room, which was big. That was great because the away one's a bit shabby. So we got all that sort of, that experience. And then, it was when one thing I'd really like to point out, and as a club, the committee members and Guy Jones, James Gilroy, and Lisa Kyle, and everybody, Dave Ellis, our secretary. It was great for the club, those who've been there and done it, and Glenn Carl and John Shaw, our first team coach, who've just been at this club for years and years and seen us play. Conyers in front of 5 people, Minty, our social media guy, and amongst other things, he does all sorts. It was just great to see them soaking it up. Jimmy Francis, sorry, I'm reeling off names here, but I'm probably going to miss some. But yeah, that was big. It was sort of great for them. And then actually walking out, the players walked out, and then you walked out, and I'll be honest, you turned to your right, there was 1,600 in obviously a 35,000 seat stadium, but it was just a sea of blue. It felt like there was only Yarm fans there. I know it's no disrespect to Borough Rangers, but I was probably being biased on what I could see, but there was just blue everywhere, and family and friends and fans and people from Yarm who maybe hadn't been to games. It was just a real momentous occasion, and then to get over the line is something I'll never forget. And I tell the group that in 20 years, hopefully we're all sat having a drink together, and we'll talk about that night, because it was just an incredible night.
And you talk about there, obviously at the Riverside Stadium, and beating Borough Rangers, who are a division above, obviously, and like you say, that the competition you listed on the way to the final. So was that something else to be proud of as well? The teams that you've beat en route to the Riverside.
100%. The whole journey. Sorry, I might have jumped your question there, Charlie, but whole journey up to that point. We only beat clubs who were above us in the pyramid, and that's what that competition's about. You're playing, clubs high in the pyramid. And I'll be honest, in the first season I was in charge, it wasn't something we massively prioritised. I felt it sort of wanted to focus on the league, and we didn't we didn't set out the season and say, we're going to win the North Riding Cup by any stretch. We knew we wanted to be competitive in it, and we selected squads that we wanted to get as far as we could. As a player, I only ever got the semi-final. I remember playing for Redcar Athletic, Scarborough beating us in the semi-final, and just being that gutted that you'd ever made it to the Riverside. So yeah, to get there, and then Borough Rangers, who'd done it a couple of years previous, knowing they'd had such a successful season, I'm sure they were pleased to be playing us, who were in Division 2, not getting away from that. So yeah, it was a tough. It wasn't the greatest spectacle, I'll be honest. It's not one you'd want to watch the full highlights from. They went down to 10 men after about half an hour, and that sort of our game plan was maybe to counter and that sort of change the game, change the feel of the game. Wasn't many clear cut chances. We got in once or twice. I had a couple of sighters from range. So yeah, it deservedly went to penalties, because nobody had really deserved to win it over 90, I feel, and it just got over the line. Callum Roberts, our goalkeeper, is a fantastic goalkeeper, and he sort of great shot stopper, great penalties, and our lads held the nerve. And I think what we'll come on to, that was big again for us to do it in front of 1,600 at the Riverside. To put the penalties away with that pressure on, helped us in the following two, definitely.
And then Stephen, obviously, the playoff final against Jarrow, just a fantastic day for everyone involved with Yarm. Just how was it for you and your squad throughout the day? Because every emotions were felt, not just for Yarm, but for Jarrow as well, going all the way to extra time and then penalties. Just how was that for you being in charge on the touchline?
Well, the extra time was a bit of a random one, because there'd been no extra time the year previous.
I
think Charlie, you were at the game, weren't you, Charlie?
Yeah, we're both at the game.
Yeah.
By the way, it was like the most entertaining 0-0 I've ever seen.
Yeah,
by the way. The XG,
I think it was, yeah.
But
yeah.
Sorry, we thought it would go straight to pens. We haven't really seen any extra time in the Northern League, so I don't know if that's a new rule they've brought in, but yeah.
Well,
anyway.
we knew. We obviously the league had communicated it to us the weekend previous, so we were aware it was going to extra time. We'd had Wednesday night, and that's what and you'll have seen the pitch. You know, the pitch was tough, it was dry, not much grass on it. But to flip that, I felt we got stronger at times into going into extra time, and you know, it was just it was like a boxing match at times. The game, you know, we'd have a go, they'd have a go, and that's where I flip it over from the Borough Rangers final, where there was sort of 0 clear-cut chances. It could have been 7-7, and you couldn't really complain. Once somebody had won 7-6, you know, you couldn't have really complained, and I think that was it was one of the best 0-0s I've ever watched, you know, and been a part of. And fair play to both sides, you know, wanted it that much that we both gave it a really go. We went through a couple of times. They had one. It's probably the worst miss I've ever seen in my life in that first half, where Cam sort of headed it to him a yard out and he's put it over. I still disappointed. And then we went through 5 minutes later and we've tried to square it, you know, and a couple of minutes later. So it was just that, you know, just end to end. And so they rattled the crossbar. We had one off the line. It was entertaining, and it was a bit no team, you know, could say that they deserved to that they've been 100% the better side. And it's just the lottery and you know, awfulness of penalties if you're on the wrong side ultimately. And I know Jarrod, fortunately that had happened the year previous as well against Thornaby. So 2 years running to sort of not get over the line in the final is guttering for them. For us, it was obviously elation. It was emotion, as you mentioned, Leo. I know the fans all on the pitch and the community of Yarm. You know, we want to get into Yarm. We're making real good progress with that. I'm happy to speak about that as well. I know we haven't got it as a question about us getting into Yarm, but the Yarm had come out, and I think it was crowded near the 800 there that day. Jarrod brought plenty as well. So it was just it was a warm day. It was just a great occasion of a day. It was a good match, a really good match to watch. And yeah, well, that's held the nerve again, and sort of, yeah, Callum, you know, saved penalty at a decisive moment. And yeah, do you know what, the feeling probably, this is crazy, but that one was more relief. It was relief that we'd done it, and yeah, it took a while. And that night, don't get me wrong, we were out till the early hours, but it took a while that night for it to sort of sink in. And I think until these fixtures are released, it maybe fully won't sink in. I think, well, we're due to get them Friday, and they'll be released officially on Saturday. So that'll be sort of really when it sort of hits home that, yeah, we're at step 5 now. And that was sort of when I took over, you know, sort of discussed with the club. I want to get the club to step 5. 2 years, you know, is maybe a year before we'd maybe sort of planned out. And you never know when, you know, we could have finished mid-table. Some top teams finish mid-table in Division 2 with some big sides. You can get sucked into that middle area of Division 2 at any point quite easily. And for us to push on, and I think Jack or Leo mentioned earlier, we beat the points tally. And then to get over the line was, yeah, relief, and then just complete elation, excitement. Just, you know, so proud of the group of players that we've worked with to sort of do that, and for this club and for each other, and for those who've been around, who I've mentioned all the names earlier, and to do it for them, and then put us in a position where we've got a really exciting season this year. And, you know, it's a bit of a different feeling from going into a season thinking, you know, we need to be up and around the playoffs, and I want us up and around the playoffs in Division 1. Of course, I'm sort of, you know, I've got high expectations on this group, but yeah, it's a bit of a different feel this year.
You've managed to retain a lot of players going into next season. How important is that in terms of having a platform to build on going into pre-season?
Yeah, I think it's the main thing for this group. You've seen other clubs do it. Stockton Town, who, you know, had a core group, who have added at the right times. Borough Rangers, another club, sort of have a core group of players who've been together for a long time. And this is who I want to go and have a crack at Division 1 with, is this group of players, and they deserve it. I think the points that they put on over the last 2 seasons have shown that they deserve a crack at this level. We've played plenty of Step 5 teams, particularly this season. We'll be Pickering Town in the FA Vars. That gets overshadowed. We were sort of, there was only us and Northallerton left in the second round, probably the FA Vars as well, and that was penalties again. Wow, that one gets overlooked because I know, but we've got beat off Fullwood. We were 2-0 up at the 92nd minute, and it finished 2 each, and we got beat on pens. And I was thinking, oh wow, this season to go to the FA Vars third round. So yeah, I can't remember the question. Sorry, Jack, but I've gone off on a real train. But
it was just saying in terms of retaining players, like
yeah.
Is that as a platform to build for pre-season?
Yeah, it is. It was when I spoke to the club, the main thing we needed to do was keep the core, add 2, 3 maximum. We may be looking for 1 more, but we're not rushing that. I've got a couple of lads I'm speaking to, but no necessity to sort of rip things up at all. This group, I have the belief that this group will go into Division 1 and be competitive in as many games as possible, every game.
Sorry, I don't want to go too far backwards, but I was just like wondering on a personal level. I was for the League Cup final against Darton. I just checked my phone and I saw it was 3-0, like just before half time. So I was just wondering, after those obviously 2 pretty mentally exhausting finals, how was it seeing that you're 3-0 down and then for the team to bounce back? That must have just been like a cherry on top as well, mustn't it?
I think it just epitomises the whole group, Charlie, in sort of that never say die. We haven't spoke about. There's been so many moments. The 6-5 at Sunderland West End in the first season. That was a crazy one that blew up. That was match of the day.
It was on Sky Sports, wasn't it? I remember seeing that. Yeah,
I was on Talk Sports. It was crazy. It was just Cam Wild, our captain, was on radio. Everyone was on the radio at some point. That was crazy. And sort of the Darlow Town game was similar in comebacks. Again, I mentioned Blue Star comeback. Obviously, quite a number of the group had a really heavy night Saturday, and of course we had to go and celebrate. And it'd been planned that we were Saturday, Monday. The league, fair play, would give us the option Monday, Wednesday, and we just wanted to get everything done as early as possible. And so we sort of agreed to the bank holiday Monday. And some lads who hadn't played the playoff final, obviously played on the Monday as well. And we changed things around. People couldn't walk. Some lads were sat on the bench who had played 90 minutes at the Riverside, 120 minutes on a really dry pitch, and then had been on the pop till Sunday, whatever time. and fair play to them, they did it, and they do it. And I'll hold my hands up after 20 minutes. It was 20 minutes. We were 3-0 down, and you're sort of thinking, keep this respectable if needs be. We've done what we set out to do. We wanted to win the Ernest Armstrong, of course. I wanted, a couple of times as a player, you have a fantastic day after it. And we were the holders. I kept, drumming that we were the holders of this competition. And we got one just before half-time, an own goal. It just changed the feel of the game. And we brought a couple of lads on at half-time, just after half-time, who were feeling it, who knew we could give us half an hour. And Tom Atkinson got his 51st goal of the season in that game. And then, Cam Wilder, our captain, fitting that he goes and gets the equaliser to make it 3-3. And we finished that game strong, considering, again, we had a couple of chances to go and win it. It was just, and then, penalties again. Callum, couple of great saves. Our lads I think they knew they were going to score a lot of them before they got up at that point. So,
what are your thoughts? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I was just going to ask what your thoughts on Callum's antics during shootouts and through the games, because he does like a little bit of winding up, doesn't he?
I'll be neutral here, and that's the referees who have to manage it, and it's on them to manage the game. Yeah. So if he's within the laws of the game, and they think that he's took the odd yellow card in the shootouts, but
bit of sacrifice there.
They seem to have an impact, I feel, and I think other goalkeepers were trying to emulate that in one or two of the finals, and nobody does it like him. But he backs it up because his shot stopping is, like I say, incredible. One of the best I've seen at this level, if not the best.
Fair enough.
Oh, sorry, Charlie. But Stephen, you said you went up probably a year prior before. What are the long-term ambitions at Yarm and yourself ambition as well?
So the club just wants to keep growing. I don't like standing still in anything in life. I do. I always want to push everything out of anything that I do. And the club, we've the lease at Allens West is there. We're waiting on approval from the DFE, but everything's signed, everything's sealed. We're just waiting on final approval. We train on there now. We've got keys to the place, and that's where sort of the ground will be built in Eaglescliff. So Yarm and Eaglescliff out the back of the train station, which is really exciting. And sort of two things I came in when I sort of started was to get the club to step 5, and my goal was to manage in Yarm and Eaglescliff. Obviously, we really appreciate with Billy Town who supported us in this journey, but we do need our own ground to keep growing. That's probably the biggest thing at the moment, Leo. Rather than sort of looking at where we're going to go, yes, we need to maintain at step 5 as much as we can now, and sort of look at consolidating that level, and then while sort of ensure that we get into our own home, and that will be the next biggest push for this club, and will be huge for the area, because it's a football mad area. A lot of people go to Middlesbrough games. It's not that close, 20-minute drive. If we can sort of get some fans to come across, and we do at Billy Town. We averaged 150 last year, 10 miles out of town. And we had some big games, of course, but if we get into Yarm, I know that the crowds will be really strong and solid, and it'll become a community hub in the middle of Eaglescliff. So yeah, that's the biggest progression the club needs to do, is sustain at this level, maintain at this level, and keep pushing the ground.
You've seen with the likes of Horden and Easington, who have gone up and competed. Does that give you self-confidence when you're saying you want to give, obviously, this squad the chance? You don't want to go in and rip the squad up. You want to give this squad the chance to sort of impress you this season in Division 1.
Yeah, I believe this is it's one of the strongest Division 1s I've seen in a number of years, at least 5 or 6 years since Stocktons and Hebburns were around, I feel. And it's going to be really, really competitive. I don't think there's going to be any sort of game where you're thinking that's a banker by any stretch. And we are going to have to be at our best every week. We're not going to. I mentioned earlier we sort of played. Sometimes we weren't the greatest, but we managed to get over the line. That isn't going to be the case this year. We are going to have to be at it to take a point, 3 points where we can. And ultimately, we're not that used to losing games. We lost six out of 42 in our first season. We lost 6 out of 42 last season. So we've only lost in the league 12 out of the last 84. And it's not us getting used to losing at all. It's how we react to it. We've shown that, from the Boxing Day, 26 unbeaten, we can react to defeats, but it's sort of it's going to be interesting, the group, and I'm excited by that. I'm excited to see how we as a management sort of respond to the challenges this season. And I was on a podcast with Northallerton from Gizzy the other day, and they've just gone up, and he said he's not just going to make the numbers up, and that's a statement I want to make for Yarm. We're not just coming to make the numbers up, we're coming to make a statement. We're coming to be competitive in games. We'll be hard to beat. We always are. I'm talking about the goals we've scored. We've had the best defensive record over the last 2 seasons. We're solid, we're strong, and teams will find us hard to break down at times. And we'll we have a goal scorer in Tom. We brought Mikey in. We know we'll score goals at this level. He's done it at the levels above. Alongside other players, we've got Josh Larkin coming back fit now, Josh Marshall, Harry Titch. Hopefully we'll get a few more goals out of him. So yeah, just really excited, and it's great to see, like, I'm watching the lads running on the track here. Just seeing them putting the work in, and I can see there's a different feel to them coming back. They know they've got to, again, standards have to raise again, and they know that, and yeah, it's exciting to see where we can go with that.
And you sort of mentioned all the positivity there. For you, like, on a personal note, you obviously got Division 2 Manager of the Year, and you've had a few really successful first seasons in coaching. So is it a career you see yourself, like, going on several years, like, having a passion about doing that?
Yeah, it's certainly a passion. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
The
wife would have me off it straight away if she could. But there's certainly a passion. I sort of, at the moment, it's sort of, I appreciate it as my sort of hobby, as I mentioned earlier, and that's something I really enjoy. And I never want to lose that. That's important, that I do enjoy it, and we enjoy it as management. And yeah, obviously it's a bit easier when you're winning games over the course of the season, but we learned the most from the defeats last season, and we went to Prudhoe away. I know, Charlie, you've got some links to Prudhoe, and
Oh yeah.
we got done in 50-mile-an-hour winds, and sort of I learned a lot about the group that day, and I challenged the group after that game that, look, this isn't good enough, and I told them that, and it felt like things were dipping, and that we probably needed that defeat, as much as it was to reinvigorate us, and we went on a bit of a run after that. So yeah, I never want to lose that enjoyment for it, and I certainly, there's real excitement about this season. But yeah, it's not something I sort of take for granted. I enjoy it. I love it. I love the business of it, on the phone all the time, texting players, and tactics and all that. I love all of that. But I would never allow it to become a detriment to anything else, and that's ultimately what it is, because it is a hobby. I do it because I love it, and that's the main thing.
No, yeah, I don't know. Have you got any more questions, lads? I don't want to keep you too long, but
no, it was kind of just, Stephen, you mentioned about it's probably been the strongest Div 1 in a number of years. Just what do you think will be the key differences from Div 2 to Div 1, in your opinion?
I think I don't want to sort of disrespect anything in Division 2, because it's a really competitive division again this year. But I've said to our lads, we've gone from maybe one of the fittest teams to I think we'll be behind. If we had our levels from last year, we need to raise our levels. I think professionalism of some teams, you've got some big clubs coming down from the step above in Bishop Auckland, Blythetown, Newton Aycliffe. They'll be training twice a week alongside matches. Their levels of preparation, there'll be more time put into that, because of the resources they have ultimately, and the expectations on players. So I think obviously tactically we'll be competing against some management, groups who've been way above this level. So that'll be a real challenge that I'm really looking forward to, is sort of how are we going to offset that. So yeah, that's the main things I think around the professionalism, resources, and quality of players. Of course, there's a huge step up in quality of players as we move up.
Yeah, is that all from you, Jack? You got anything, or was that?
I was going to ask you about the cup draws you might get next season. Teams will be a little bit nervous if the game's level and ticking up towards penalties after all your success this season.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm sure they'll try and get some footage and see what we were up to. Is my voice loud? Okay.
Yeah,
it's
perfect.
Yeah,
Same as before.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be trying to get some footage. And yeah, there was I think we had 7 penalty shootouts this season, and we lost the one to Fullwood in the Vars, which was guttering. And then we won 6 penalty shootouts, I believe. Yeah, we beat Scarborough, York, beat Billytown in the cup, and then obviously the three crazy ones to finish at the end of the season. So yeah, hopefully we can do the business in 90. It'll be a bit easier for the heart.
Yeah.
No, definitely. That's all from us, I'm pretty sure. Thank you again for coming on. We've really appreciate it. Really enjoyed the episode as well. So thank you for your time.
Oh, that's great questions. I really enjoyed that. It was a good cracking hour. Yeah, anytime again in the season, just give me a shout.
Yeah, perfect. Now you're gonna get assessing the lads on the track now. Hopefully that'll be a bit.
Just finishing now. I'm gonna go and see you spewing. Hopefully some spewing.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Cheers,
Good luck for next season.
For the rest of the season.